Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending this evening. I don't need to do it yet, right? So please silence, put your phones on vibrate, turn them off to make sure that we remove any unnecessary disturbances. And again, in order to maintain orderly conduct and proper decorum in this public meeting, please refrain from any remarks or actions that are disruptive or intended to be slanderous, obscene, offensive, threatening, insightful in any way. Any speaker purposefully failing to comply with the above will be invited to observe the remainder of the meeting via live stream.
Yes.
It is 6:38. Today is Thursday, January 19, 2023. We are opening up the Community Redevelopment Agency meeting for the historic town of Eatonville. Mrs. King, do we have a quorum?
We do, and I can go through the roll call. We have Director Randolph.
Yes.
Director Henderson.
Present.
Director Washington. Chair Gardner.
Here.
Vice Chair Daniels.
Present.
Director Daniels.
Present.
And Director Crittenden.
Present.
Thank you.
Please stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda.
Mayor,
Yes.
public participation.
Oh, I'm sorry, citizen participation. I did write again. Do we have any?
We don't have any submitted,
Okay.
no.
So we're gonna-
But for the record, from what I
Okay.
can make sure.
Motion on the floor to approve the consent agenda, which is the meeting minutes for December 20th, 2022.
So moved.
It's been moved in second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed. First item, discussion of property located 225 West Kennedy Boulevard.
So, this is a continuation of a continuation. That property was voted upon, I think, in the latter part of 2021, beginning 2022, for that property, given that to Mr. Dixon. And I'm just trying to find out where we stand right now, because we can do a lot of legislation, move stuff along, but then we have no power to do it. So as of today's date, I'm trying to figure out where do we stand, and I know we've still been paying things down there and all that. Where do we stand on this property right now?
I mean, the executive director should be, then it's not,
Is that chairman? I'm talking to the chair.
the chair. I mean,
When you say where do we stand, where do we stand on returning the property? Where do we stand on securing the property, removing?
Right, what's the update on, correct?
So
Securing, because we heard from a resident, and I'll let you know, we heard from a resident that undue people that's been there, don't know if electricity's there and all those kind of things. Where do we stand with this property as of right now?
Okay, as far as what I understand right now, we should be doing the vacation of the property. and that has to go through the courts. And I know that you made moves on that.
Yes, so I have contacted Attorney Jackson to begin the eviction process of the property. And that's what he's doing.
Attorney Jackson, do you have any update for that?
No updates at this time, just trying to procure and determine who the individuals are so that there could be proper notice, and also to make sure that we have the names of individuals who are receiving mail at that location. If they're not receiving mail at that location, they shouldn't be there anyway. So I want to make sure that anyone who is there gets the proper notice.
So I guess then my question would be, it's my understanding we can put a notice on the building itself to let them know.
Yes, ma'am.
And then maybe we can put a note up there, let them know that there will be proceedings, and then they can contact the town with their contact information.
Yes, ma'am, we can do
Maybe that'll
that.
prompt us to receive some.
Now, who's the, I have a question, who's the water service in?
Who's what?
The water service feeds the utilities.
And that should be
Who's the
the town.
name? So, if that's the case, I mean, we need to turn that off. I mean, if they're using, if they're not paying it, it's more money wasted somewhere down, you know. So, you need to know who's paying that, or they're not paying it. Is it on?
Well, at this point, just vacation of,
I think the service is on.
just the eviction.
On?
I think we're on. So
We have
someone
money.
has been paying.
All right, so, if we just put a note up there, they contact us, and then we'll go from there.
Yes, ma'am.
Next item, oh, I'm sorry.
Where are we on finding the next of kin for Mr. Dixon? I mean, this board has discussed giving that property back. We understand what happened. Where are we trying to figure this out, making sure that the next of kin or whoever the heir is, that we do the right thing by giving the property back? Where are we on that?
Okay. So I don't see that part as anything dealing with the executive director or this board at all, finding or tracking down next of kin. And in regards to disposition of this property, we have to follow the CRA codes and statutes. And you are limited as to what you can do. You can't give it back to an individual when you own it. So I'm going to defer that to Attorney Jackson.
Okay, before we go there, Attorney, where are we on the investigation part of this property? Because we keep having these discussions, and I see they're just discussions, so what actions are we taking to have an investigation of this property done to see if everything was done according to
Wait, but now we're talking about a third thing. So let's clear this part up.
I'm sorry.
I have something.
No, but I know that what you just said, but you asked him a question on top of a question. So if he clears up the second question, then you can get to your question. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, will I comment, please?
Wait,
Oh.
so the first question was regarding the eviction process, and then the second question was the disposition, disposing of property that is under the ownership of the CRA. And then the third question was an investigation.
With regards to the ownership of the property by the CRA, I believe that in prior meetings, based on the information that I saw, that the conveyance of the property was not done properly in my opinion. And so based on that, it was my recommendation, or has been my recommendation, that efforts are taken to reverse the actions of what was done with the board that was in place that was not a valid board. And so that has been my position and opinion in that regard, just only waiting on this board to determine what action they want to take in terms of if they want to reverse the action that was taken by the previous board. I can't do that unless this board instructs me to do so. And I apologize, the third question was, or
I think you already.
okay, that was a part of it? Okay.
But before you go to determine, we did reverse that action. That action was reversed by resolution. So it should be the chair's responsibility to make sure that that action didn't go through. We did reverse that action. So that action has been voted on by the board to return the property in its proper way and all that, and find a legal way of doing it. So I don't know why that has not been communicated to you?
I think the chair should be able to answer that. I mean, she can't answer for her, but that's a good question for the chair.
Well, I'm going to say, so it's two things. I don't remember the date of the, do you remember the date of the resolution? That's the first thing. The second thing is just because you have a resolution doesn't mean you break the law. And what I'm stating is that unless the court says a law is broken, then no law has been broken. And until that, let me finish. And until that is ascertained or not ascertained, then there's nothing to do at this point. You cannot dispose of CRA property to a person unless it is for public good. Otherwise, you have to sell it. So, I mean, that's just, you can. So after that, I don't know what else to. I have nothing else to say about it.
Of course. Attorney, since it was, we know that Mr. Dixon was not, I'm just gonna say competent in this proceeding. So shouldn't that negate anything that he signed or anything that we have done as far as business with him? And make sure that, so the board, it should revert back to him or to the next heir of his estate? Because we keep prolonging this investigation. The investigation will reveal everything. And then we will see. Then we can go from there, like, oh no, he was competent, or no, he wasn't. And then we can proceed with this. But it seems as though this thing is just dragging on, and it's not fair. So, attorney, what do we have to do? Do we have to put a motion on the floor now to get this investigated, to make sure that we did our due diligence as a board and that the CRA did his due diligence in the handling of this purchasing of this property?
I have one question. Where's the heirs when we had the issue? Where were the heirs when this young man was going to Peter Paul?
Hold on 1 minute. Board member Daniels. And then
No, I don't want that.
director.
Since I am not a medical person to be the demon, I'll take this from a different route. Attorney Jackson, how many members are needed for a CRA board? Per Florida statute?
Per Florida statute, at least 5.
At least 5. On the date of this vote, there were only 3 members that were sitting on the board, and other members were allowed to come in afterwards. So, I'm not a guru, but if the action was taken by that board was illegal from the beginning, that makes the whole contract null and void, correct? If there was not a 5-member board, would that make the action illegal?
So my position has been twofold. My position has been twofold. From the standpoint of whether or not the board that was acting at that time was a valid board, my position has been that it was not a valid board. Not just because of the number of individuals who were on the board, but also because of the makeup of that board not being the governing body of the municipality, which is the town of Eatonville. That was not done, and that should have been done per the bylaws, per the statute. The other aspects of this, which I've also voiced, is that based on the perceived competency of the individual that the property was purchased from, and I believe I told you that I spoke to Alan Abramowitz, who was with the Guardian ad Litem program for the state of Florida, to discuss how do you determine competency for individuals and what things are supposed to be put in place when you have or suspect that someone is incompetent, and the steps that should have been taken or when it was voiced, because I watched the video and it was voiced by at least two individuals from that meeting that Mr. Dixon did not have the wherewithal to make that decision. That in and of itself was an indication that he was not competent to enter into an agreement. And in my opinion, and folks may disagree, and I understand that's why we have opposing sides, but in my opinion, when that was stated and made clear to members of that board, albeit invalid, any actions taken with the individual who was deemed incompetent should have ceased at that point, and there should have been established a guardian or an individual who could speak on that person's behalf. The other aspect, though, is that the then CRA attorney also stepped in the position to represent Mr. Dixon in order to move the sale forward after being made aware from 2 board members' perspectives that he was not competent to move forward. So there are things that when you look at it, I can't sit here and say that you can just automatically make a vote and say, right now, do it, but I can say that there were aspects of that particular transaction that were of concern.
Wait, I don't mean to cut you off, and I'm okay with, whatever investigation. But this is going on almost a year that these conversations keep being had. At this meeting tonight, there was to have been a scope of work, so that an RFP can go out so that the discovery, am I right, was it on this or was it on, every,
Well, before you, since I.
was it on the investigation? Do you remember?
I do not remember exactly what the investigation was on. I know that the board has not done a scope
Right,
of
so,
work when it comes to the investigation.
right, and that's what we should have had. That's what we should have had, so that tonight it's just a matter of asking to put out an RFP, and then it'll get to whatever it is you want to know, but we keep having the same conversation.
Right, so, and I'll finalize what I was saying, Chair. And that was to my point. If we have passed a resolution as this board of an action that's supposed to take place, you being the chair of this board has the right to move it forward whether you agree or disagree with our action. So the holdup is with you right now. Because we passed for this to go forward, for the action to be given back to him and all that, and you keep saying, well, I don't agree with it. That's not for you to agree.
When did I say I didn't agree with it?
You said that, we can play the tape back, you said that you didn't agree.
Tonight I said I don't agree with it? I'm asking a question.
Yeah.
Tonight, I said I don't agree. I said, just because you passed a resolution, if it does not align with the laws,
So-
doesn't mean that you do it. That's what I said. And I said that because we are taking it upon ourselves to state legal claim, and we're not court at all. And whatever step we take, but it seems to me there should be a judge involved. Can't get a judge involved without an RFP, right? So we need a scope of work to know what the RFP is going to entail.
As Chair, have you helped push this along to get the scope of work and all that?
Ms. Bonds.
So I emailed Attorney Jackson about the RFP, but I do know that the board has not passed or presented a scope of work. And I believe the meeting prior, Attorney Shepherd said that that's what should happen, and we should put a time amount and a dollar amount on the scope, so you would know how long it take, and then how much we want to spend on the investigation. That has not happened, and I believe that's why we have not put out the RFP.
Excuse me. May I?
Yes, Director.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, no.
And we're talking about multiple issues going backwards and forward, and I'm trying to follow some of the initial conversations that was discussed earlier. All right, my views on this is that as far as the property is concerned, we know exactly, all of us are already familiar with the process of what occurred previously as far as the property and Mr. Dixon. But right now, the way that I see it, from a legal point, is that at this moment, there's very little that can be done as far as who's going to own the property. We know that according to the agreement, we own the property because Mr. Dixon had passed away. However, what I see based upon my conversations with a family member is that they're going through a process of probate. This could be tied up for an extended period of time right now because that decision is not going to, they're trying to find all the relatives. There's a lot of what we call first cousins, second cousins, third cousins, and then there's some fourth cousins. because the family has a long line of relatives, but there's a very small amount of family members. And they have secured an attorney, and I did turn that in to Mrs. King and also to both of our attorneys, so that way they will be aware in case they get information from the attorney firm, which is Anderson and Anderson. They are located in Sanford, Florida. So even at that point, they're trying to secure the whereabouts of all the relatives. But in the meantime, because we have the property in our possession, we have to do everything possible to secure that piece of property. And as far as the attorney moving forward with the eviction process, yes, he is correct. Everyone that lives there, who's getting mail there, you have to get their names and their information, and you have to go through the court system. So this can be a very prolonged situation that we're facing, and it's something that is not going to be easily resolved. So I just want to make sure that based upon what my information that I have received and what I know about what's going on, we could be in for a long-term road down the road of holding this property. Unless there's another procedure that the property can be released from the town and turned over to the court, then the court will make a decision once they go through the probate process. All right, thank you.
Vice Chair.
And attorney, I know you know this, the former attorney, Dean Mosley, also had a rendering on this. Before the Constitution, I guess Article 7, Section 10, states that public money cannot be utilized to assess in private or personal financial matters. Public money has to be spent for the public purpose. This is for Dean Mosley. So in that, even in the beginning of monies being used for this, it shows that it wasn't, this is from another legal opinion that we've had here. So it shows the whole deal wasn't right. And all I want to do, and for this community, and we're trying to do it for Mr. Dixon, is make sure that it goes properly back to whom he has in place, and whoever was supposed to take care of him, or his cousins, or there, however it may be. I understand that there may be a process, but I want to know that our process wasn't right in this whole matter, even just from the monies used from the CRA to purchase this. And this is not even your legal opinion. This is from another attorney with documentation from the Florida Constitution.
Director Washington.
I disagree with that. I think, first of all, CRAs we bought several properties with homes or vacant lots. So how is that illegal to purchase a piece of property with structure on it? So it's not illegal to purchase property with CRA dollars. That's what it's for. Blighted areas in all that. So I don't know whether Dean, Mr. Bowles got that from, but you can use public dollars to buy property. Cities do it all the time. They do it all the time. So let's get that myth out the air, and that's not true. We got several properties with nothing on it. We bought with public dollars. So what we're illegal on that. So you can't have it two ways.
Wait, can we clarify?
No, I'm just saying, no. You can't have it two ways. We bought this property, and we bought one down here, one over there.
But let's clarify what that is. What that is saying is that you can't pay personal bills, which
Right.
is why the CRA had to get the property.
Right, you can't pay
So
his
it
bill
was
and keep
done
it.
properly according to the CRA rules. And all I'm saying is if you want to do it another way, then we need to do that properly. So whatever the next step at this point is to still get the scope of work, we put out the RFP, we put it into the next step, but we need that done.
I want to finish.
So we're gonna
And
keep
with
talking.
with the property down there, if people going in there, like I've been hearing, there's only Tommy and his girlfriend, I guess, was in the house. Now there's several people in the house, and the police department can go down there and get them out. Only person to be in the house is the female, if that's the case. You can't sit there and build a record saying, well, I'm gonna get married here now. You know, he just died so many days ago. So, but we need to get on this. It's our property. We need to maintain it, and like other city does. Is that take the property?
So the eviction process has to occur.
Right. That's what we need to do.
Sorry, Vice Chair.
Attorney Jackson, when can let's set deadlines, because if we don't, this will be intentionally prolonged. What deadline do we need in order to get the RFP done so that we can get this matter resolved?
And Ms. Barnes is correct. You did send me an email. That is something that I'm working on the language on. I will have that to Ms. Barnes. I just started on another project separate. I can have that to Ms. Barnes by Monday, if not sooner.
All right, next item. Bylaws for revision.
So currently, I think there's been some confusion on what bylaws. So we had the bylaws that was the 2020-10, which was by the independent board, and then we had other bylaws that was from 2017. So for clarity, we're going by the bylaws that was initially was set up for 2017, but they should have been signed for the end of 2021, 2022. Those should be the bylaws that we're going by. But I've been working on it. I've been talking I talked to Attorney Jackson before I talked to Attorney Shepard. So just heads up, next CRA meeting will be coming with CRA bylaws that's friendly, that's cleaned up and all that. Because what's happened is bylaws was created to give somebody power that wasn't supposed to have power. The board always supposed to have power. It's not the executive director or whoever has power. This board, this body determines things and actions that's going forward. So just to let you know that will be coming up.
So I see those two sets of bylaws, so was this just added because of the part, it says part 2, do you mean part 3? I'm not sure why this is in there.
Become governed by the obligations and stuff like that?
But you just meant for us to just review the two sets of bylaws?
Correct.
And
then there will be a preliminary that's coming out ahead of time. I'll send it to the clerk, and then that gives us time. So when we get in here, we're going to be in for 4 hours going over bylaws. Everybody had the opportunity to go through and go through it. But I think one of our main issues is that we have documentation that's not up to date. It's not running concurrent with policies and procedures and everything, and that's going to be the only way we're going to be able to get on track.
Is Ms. Bond a part of this? Bylaws? Is that the director part of this?
Part of the agenda or
So,
part of?
the bylaw, change the bylaw.
No.
I mean, why the board been trying to change the bylaw? I mean, that's what you got to take the director for. I mean, we have them right here. What you want to change out of them? That's not a board member job to sit here and give me your bylaws. The executive director bring the bylaws.
so perhaps.
I don't understand that. I mean,
Washington.
I don't understand that.
So perhaps you can work-
meet that with Washington.
That's why we hired an executive director to, if you have a problem with the bylaws,
Wait, can we,
deal with
Attorney
the bylaws. with the
Attorney
executive director.
Jackson,
Yes, ma'am.
please weigh in.
In terms of who is tasked with
In
aligning
terms of the
us,
director, and this question is not you're working on the bylaws. My thing is work with the director. But my question for you, attorney, is should the director or prepare the bylaws? Even if they just copy them here, same bylaws and send them out. Should the director do that work? What is the specific job of the director on this board?
so it's my position that the director should be tasked with preparing bylaws to present to the board for final approval. So if the executive director indicates or has determined that there needs to be an update to the bylaws, or even if members determine that there needs to be an update to the bylaws for whatever reason, the executive director should be tasked with preparing those bylaws. Obviously, I would say with the assistance of legal, and presenting those to the board for the board's input and final approval of the bylaws.
Okay, so whatever changes you have, if you give them, send them through and review with the director who presents them to you.
Right.
Would that work?
Right,
Okay.
and then the board is to go through and go on the correct check.
Yes, you review them.
Yeah,
I- I
like we
just-
do, and then check, then we'll
And then
present,
feedback, yes.
I think.
It was an
that-
actual administrative process.
Right, and I think that Director Washington was just misunderstanding of what the process is supposed to be. It is our job to go through and do bylaws. As he eloquently says all the time, that we are legislative, right? So I just wanted to ensure that he knows that.
Yeah, that's been corrected, but still, I mean, if you changing the whole bylaws, I mean, we go over it in the workshop. That workshop, if you have a problem with bylaws, that's what we did in the past. If you have a problem with a point, 1.5, whatever,
Right.
we go over it. And not saying you finna go, I mean, it's all a party does, not a person.
Right, it is, and I'm glad you said that, it is a party. It's a party does, it, not an individual. And the bylaws before was geared towards an individual and not a party. So they were partying by themselves.
But we'll fix it, we'll fix it. Director, would you please get with Director Daniels so that we get present us with a fresh, moving forward set of items?
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, next, are we done with that item? All right, next item is the December financials and budget. Director Daniels.
I put that on there because, we're supposed to be getting financials, thank you, Ms. Bond. She went through an updated budget, so now we have, because from all the changes, we didn't know where it was at. I've had this conversation many times, and they're still looking at our ledger account, our check register. There's questions on different things that's out there, so have we had time to pinpoint this Director Bond into what line item a lot of this stuff is coming out of?
We have not as of yet, and I actually talked to, me and Director Randolph had the same question. And I said that during the next meeting, and I actually was going to put that in my staff report, that during the next meeting, I would present the board with that, with updated expenditures and each line item. Already have it up to date.
Yes, and also in addition to that, I may not even have to bring it up in the staff report since we are discussing it. I'd like to see, we had talked about today a couple of reports, and I think will help us to understand exactly on these line items, how much of the expenses that we have incurred year to date, and then year to date, what is the balance that's left over for that particular line item. So we'll know, put controls in place so we can see how we're spending on each one of these line items. And then we can be able to determine in the future what line items are more funded than others. But some of these could be underfunded and some of these could be overfunded. So it'd be good to know year to date on each time. I think you had mentioned about having a quarterly report, that we will see exactly how much monies are we spending for that line item and how much we have left over. So I think that would be a plus, and that way I can better understand, because here it doesn't show anything. And then I had a question about, I think you had probably explained this, at $948,000, the town of Eatonville. So this is what we paid the town of Eatonville.
It's what the town of Eatonville paid to CRA.
Pardon?
It's what the town of Eatonville paid to CRA.
Yes, okay. But it also appears that there are a lot of transactions here, and we don't really have a program right now that we're taking care of slum and blight areas in the town, but it seems like we're very top-heavy on expenditures. And most of these appear to be either administrative services, and I know there's some with the insurance and the upkeep and all of that, but I'm very questionable about all the automobile repairs, O'Reilly, just between those two items, that's over $2,000 combined with Lynn Auto Repair and O'Reilly. I know that's a service department. I just think that we just need to really take a real good look and see if some of these things are things that can be.
Some of this has the town stuff on it.
Pardon?
Director Randolph.
Director Randolph, the highlighted are
Yes.
what is CRA expenditures, the
Okay.
highlighted items.
So what are these other items here?
This is the towns.
Okay, I got you. I see now. Okay, thank you for pointing it out to me. Thank you.
And one that was missed was the band corps.
Yes.
The 163216
Mhm.
should be on the CRA
It
side.
should.
Okay, yes.
So, and that's another issue, talking about financials that we gotta look at, because code enforcement is back on the town side, so the CRA is gonna pay for that vehicle, or the town is gonna assume that. So that's something that we definitely have to look into. And then, what is so she was CRA business solution?
So that is the copier that the CRA has right now, which is in Apple. And so are you talking about the $2,000?
$2,400.
So the $5,000 were the past-due invoices that I incurred when I started the position. And so to become, up to date on that, for that vendor, we pay the past-due invoices.
How many months that was?
It had to be about 6 to 8 months.
Because she was in dispute.
Yes.
Ms. Robinson was not agreeing with them. So, and they have been going back, but when she was removed, then just clear it up, just what happened.
Is it working out? The printer's working out?
The printer is not working.
They haven't conservative. I mean, I see,
I don't know when it stopped working and when it became inoperable. I'm not sure, because that wasn't told to me when I started, but it is not working now. I actually have her and have a couple of inquiries out to see if we could get another company and see what Toshiba can do to even update the machine there. So,
And we did discuss that.
yes.
something like that.
I have another question. Is the CRA funds and the town of Eatonville, is that commingled in one account?
No.
Or are these two separate accounts?
They are two separate accounts.
Okay, why can't they break this down separately for CRA in town? Because when I look at this, everything looks inclusive on one report. There's no calculations on this report that says that these expenses are CRA and these expenses are town.
I can talk to Katrina when it comes to that. I know that when this was printed, the town was going through a transition from the old system to the new system. And in order to get this in the agenda packet, this is what accounts payable purported me. So, but I can definitely talk to Katrina about that.
Yes,
See if
it's
that's
very,
something that we can do.
it's a misperception, very deceiving. Okay, thank you.
So, Chair, you just made a comment, you said Ms. Robinson was in, but that should have been Ms. Bradshaw.
Oh, I meant Ms. Bradshaw, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Ms. Bradshaw.
so do we have the amount that's in the account right now? Or do we know what our monthly breakdown is, how much money we're spending monthly? So we can come up with, what is our burn rate? That's how I determine what a burn rate is. If we're doing $30,000 of money, we have $300,000 in the bank and no other money's coming in, I mean, we got 10 months of activity left. Do we know what that is? Okay.
Unless there anything else, we're going to move on to the next one. Discussion of the Topher emails.
We should go on record somewhere.
Oh, I'm sorry, records.
Records and location.
I had to check that.
Chair and Director Barnes, we have been going through this off and on, and I spent some time over in the CRA, went over there, asking for stuff. Lately, with Mr. King and his bonds, I have been able to retrieve information that I've been asking for, which they have. So I asked a question a couple of CRA meetings ago about how many people applied for the curbside grant, the curb appeal. Ms. Bonds stated back then that she didn't know because there was no documents. On July 14, 2020, by public records, I paid for it and I have it. So how do I have documents from 2020 that was produced by the CRA, but they're not there right now? I have grave concerns with that. So if it's not over there, where are the records? I asked another question about the individuals and businesses that applied for the grants and all that. Ms. Bonds didn't have it, but I have it here. And this one was dated August 26, 2020. Public records. Another one, August 7th, and all these I paid for then, just to get clarity that they were paid for by me. Different things that was done with Ms. Wilder. So we was talking about the liens. And Ms. Bonds ended up giving me maybe 3 or 4 sheets of paper. But ironically, I have probably over 40, 50 sheets of paper with the POs and everything that I asked for in public record. I have them. And I said all this to say that we have a serious issue with public records and documentation being missing. And I'm just trying to see, can anyone give me any clarity of where these records are located now? And what I will do is, I will end up making a copy and turning them over to put them back in the records so we can find them. But how come I have them, but they're not located in the CRA? So can anyone explain to me where the records are located?
When did you get your, this is for information, when did you get your records?
August 7, 2020, public records. I said it, and I have the receipt and everything to go along with it.
So you just, I mean, I don't know your answer. I mean, they should be over there in the building. So I mean, I
Where
really don't
they
know.
originate from? Where you get them from?
I got them from, I got them from the town clerk then and the CRA director then, who turned them over apparently.
So how they miss them? You
Yeah.
got them.
So, I mean, so we'll.
How they miss them if you got them?
I have my, direct watch.
So he gave you the originals? I'm just trying to figure out, I'm just
No,
asking.
he
Direct
said
watch.
he made
I'm
his
saying,
request in
if I have a
2020.
copy of them,
And he
then
received
where
it.
are the originals that are supposed to be in the building?
That's fine.
I'm sorry, that was before my time, and I wasn't the custodial records at that time.
Ms. Bonds, I'm gonna come over there tomorrow, and we just go through every file. I mean, because sometimes it just may be how someone files something, and, you know, it's just that, yes, Vice Chair.
If I'm not mistaken, shouldn't she be the custodian of all town records?
He said,
She says she's not a custodian of records, so she should have them. The clerk should have them, right? Help me out.
You want to chime
Stop. No, go ahead.
in? You want to chime in? I'll recall a conversation that the Attorney Shepherd had with us in reference to retention records not being available and accessible through the clerk's office. If I don't have them, I can't be the custodian of that particular record. If it's not in the clerk's office, I can't produce it. Therefore, I can't be the custodian of it. That same principle lies in the office of the CRA. If those records are not in the CRA building and they were not there when she arrived, she can't be the custodian of records that don't exist.
I understand that. I was just saying, you as the clerk, normally the town, if you are the custodian of records for the whole town, like everyone should send
Yes.
this documentation over to you.
Yes, the ideal situation is that the town clerk should be able to have access to all records.
Right.
Is that the reality today? No, it's
No,
not.
it's not
But you
right.
do have access. You do have access. It just may not be in your office. It may not be in this building. but you should know, you should be able to go over to the CRA and say, okay, yes, where do you keep this? Yes, where do you keep this? Yes.
So you need a copy.
But it may not be in your location. So, and when something is needed, then they send the request to you. If it's not with you physically, you make the request to where those records reside.
Exactly. But as a point of clarity, if I make requests for records and those records are not given over to me, those records still do not exist
Right.
to the town clerk,
Right.
Yeah.
And who's held liable for that?
whoever has the
Whoever
records.
has those records. So if they don't give them over, that's a violation of something.
Yes,
Because you don't have any, we're not holding you responsible as a clerk because you're supposed to have access. But wherever it originated from,
or whoever has the record is the custodian at that time.
Right.
And because it's a public record,
Mhm.
if it is requested, they have to turn it over according to the law.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But there was a time when that building was locked up.
And they,
And the keys were in someone else's possession. So what I'm saying, Ms. Bonds, I will come over tomorrow and we'll just look to make sure that it's just not somewhere, you know, near. I mean, that's what I can do. And if they're not there, then, I mean, we have a situation, but Director Marlon Daniels has stated you would allow a copy to be placed there.
And
But
that-
right now, wait, let me, one more thing. But when those records were, that they would be on the other computer, right? These records would be on the other, because it was a public records request. So when those records were received by the town clerk and then distributed to Director Daniels, then the town clerk became the custodian of records electronically.
And because that was in 2020, I'm not sure how she accessed those records.
Okay.
Those records could have been given to her in hard copy, and she could have provided them to him in hard copy. So it's not a guarantee
Oh, yes.
that those records are available in electronic form.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
So-
So we'll we'll go over, make sure, and then after that, yes.
I just have a question for clarity, just for moving forward, being new to the board. Is it a safe expectation to believe that records pertaining to the CRA should be in the CRA building? Is it safe for me to expect that if a document is produced tonight or tomorrow, that Ms. Bonds will have that in that building? Because I keep hearing the term custodian and potential custody of these documents, but the reality is, if they are public documents, there should be some responsibility and accountability as to where those documents actually are. So I do understand Director Daniels' concern that, you know, if we have these documents pertaining to this agency and they're not available for whatever lack of accountability, that I should be able to expect that moving forward, these documents will be accurately stored. Is that a safe expectation that moving forward, even if we clear up what has happened in the past, moving forward, those documents will be in the possession at some point in time by the director and then through public requests to the clerk?
So right now, CRA documents are in the CRA building. So not unreasonable for the things that are CRA to be located in the CRA area. Now, is it something going forward that maybe we want to reconfigure some space here and have certain documents housed here? I mean, that's something that we can consider. But right now, we do need to, and we don't know, first of all, we don't know if the documents are not somewhere in that building, and I know you looked thoroughly, and we don't know when they were no longer in that building, if they're not. Because there was a time when other people did have access to the building. I mean, so, but in this case, the documents are, I don't know if we have an electronic form, but we do have a hard copy form. Director Daniels has that. So did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Yes, Director.
So that's a Band-Aid to it. But how do we address the issue if the records are missing? What is the next steps?
Well, the hard part would be, when did they go missing? Because like I said, at some point, that building was locked down.
So if the records, and maybe I'll address this to the attorney, if the records are missing, how do we classify records that's missing out of a government building?
That's a great question. And, you know, I don't think the default answer should be that if the records don't exist, or if the records aren't there, they don't exist, because that's a dangerous precedent to set, because that means that at any time someone can remove a record from a building and it no longer exists. And the town and the CRA can no longer keep track of activities and transactions, or even the history of what's taking place with this town. So I think moving forward, though, the more appropriate thing would be, in my opinion, would be to set up a system to where documents are properly maintained, whatever that means. That's not my role, that's not my position, but it troubles me that to hear that the default answer would be that if the documents don't exist, then there's no custodian to those records, because that's a dangerous precedent to set. And so I think that there should be a clearer retention policy set forth, and I'm not going to talk about the town because I'm not on the town side. There should be a clear retention policy set forth moving forward with new direction, moving forward with the understanding that there are things that are missing that should not be missing, but they are missing. And if there's a way to retrieve those records, to replace them, to ensure that the history of what has taken place with this agency can be touched and felt at some point in time, that's done. But moving forward, instead of, don't continue to look back, but moving forward to put that policy in place so that it does not happen in the future. Because at some point in time, whether it's by vote or whether it's by matriculation or moving on, Ms. Bonds is not going to be the executive director. And so the next person that comes in should not be able to come in and say, well, she's not here and that wasn't under my watch, so they don't exist. Let the policy be that the executive director or the town clerk has the records, not the individual, but the town clerk as an office has the records, and that needs to be the policy moving forward.
So if by some chance a lot of these records are missing, who would investigate it?
It's a great
Because
question.
My standpoint, I'm not going to just let this slide and say, oh, they're missing.
Well, we see that in larger governmental agencies and systems, they have the DOJ. They have enforcement arms that are in place to ensure that records that are missing are found. To be quite frank, I haven't been faced with this situation, so I don't have the answer for you, but my thought would be that if an investigation is done, it would, and I don't want to add more to what's already been added, but if an investigation is done, it would be through, a special counsel to take a look at it. But again, I think, and I'll leave it to this board, I think that the focus should really be on the policy moving forward on how to ensure that documents aren't missing. But then I don't know what Director Daniels has, but if it's something that tracks a transaction that was done by this agency that may come up at some point in time in the future in litigation, I can't go to the court and say we don't have these documents, because that becomes an issue of spoliation of evidence. And spoliation of evidence means that there is an admission of some type of fault for something that you did. And so at some point in time, I'm sure it won't come up, but I'm just saying that's the way that I have to think about this, is that I can't go in front of a court and say, hey, judge, we had these documents at one point in time, they just don't exist now. The judge is not going to accept that. So.
Right, so we'll check them all. Yes, question.
Executive Director, do you, just question, do we have records of minutes at all?
Yes, we do. And so I believe there was a records request a couple of weeks ago, and that I filled that what I could with minutes that were here at Town Hall, CRA minutes.
So the CRA minutes
There
are
are
here?
there are
The minutes are here?
Yes.
And not over there?
So when the independent board, there are minutes over there.
Okay.
But there are also agenda packets
Uh-huh.
that are here at Town Hall.
And the minutes from
10 minutes.
Many of them.
You're welcome.
All right, next item, discussion of the Topher emails.
I have a question real quick.
Yes.
During the time that the building was locked down, who all had access to the building? Do we know that?
I don't know, I don't remember the exact date that,
When the people
There-
changed,
there's a time when the lock itself was
it was
changed.
former mayor.
And then at that time, that would have been a former mayor. Then when I came on board, when the former director was removed, those set of keys I had, but the building was occupied.
Right.
Yeah, that was my next question. Who all was it staff or that was occupying the building that?
There was still staff there, but they weren't there every day, but yes, those would have been the persons going in the building.
Ms. Bradshaw? I'm asking.
Ms. Bradshaw,
Washington?
Yeah.
Mr. Washington?
Mr. Washington.
Gary Washington.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, code enforcement would have been there, yes. I mean, but that's quite presumptuous, but we'll move on. Discussion of the Topher emails.
Topher email. So I've been requesting information from the former executive director, and an occurrence happened out here in front of town hall one day where he says to me, he approached me and stated that to check my email between him and the former mayor, that they had exchanged back and forth talking about the forensic audit. And I said, it's ironic. I don't have the forensic audit, and that's when my document request came asking for the forensic audit. But it took forever and a day to get information, and information wasn't coming along. So I constantly been asking for access to get stuff. So recently I was given access to the former executive director's email, as well as looking at that computer, and items are missing off the computer, just like files are missing. When you try to retrieve stuff, it says not located, not found, and all that, which is another grave concern to me because another government document, another government computer has been wiped. So where is this coming from? So Mayor, and I'm sorry, Chair, this question is for you. Recently I see that you actually have a CRA email address. Do you know that?
I want to explain why.
Go ahead.
Well, you go ahead and finish, and then I will address it.
Okay.
So that way it's in totality.
So what made me ask all these questions, and then with documents missing, all that, on November 4th, 2022, at 12:23 in the afternoon-ish, the email of the executive director was accessed. So when I looked at it, if he's been gone all this time, all his emails should show unread. But all the emails showed read, that somebody had read it. So was it you that went through and read them?
At one point, Ms. Bradshaw was helping.
So
I would tell you that Ms. Bradshaw was accessing the emails because remember that DEO grant, and there are grants going through there, there's the information that we need.
So you said Ms. Bradshaw had that email address and password. That's what you're telling me?
Probably. Because she had to monitor the email.
But you gave that information, the former director gave you the information, you gave it to Mr. Singh, that's how you can access.
I didn't do that until January.
Right, so January, okay.
Or, was it January?
Yeah, that was about a week ago, that's when I got it. So, with that being said, you said Ms. Bradshaw was released in what month?
Her last month, I think, would have been, I want to say she was still there in November because she had to do some of the last financial, yes,
Okay.
yes.
I say all that to say, on November 4th, 2022, B. Clark at EdenvilleCRA.org was suspended by Michael Johnson, email address, by his sign-in. On the same day, A. Wilson at EdenvilleCRA.org was suspended by Michael Johnson, CRA email address. A data transfer was done on the same day of B. Clark and A. Wilson to Michael Johnson, Edenville CRA address, drive, docs, and all that by Michael Johnson. And this is where we get into custodial records and all that. The A. Wilson and the B. Clark email was deleted off of the server on that same day. On that same day of November 4th, the password change requirements of EdenvilleCRA.org, the support, was changed. The password for the change for the support in Edenville CRA was changed. The last name of the support in Edenville CRA was changed from CRA to Gardner. The first name of support at Edenville.org was changed from Edenville to Angie. The password was also changed for support right after that. Can you explain who made those changes?
Sure. Do you remember, can you give me the dates again?
November 4th. All this was at November 4th, all on the same day.
Was that around the time you came on, or after you?
That was after I came.
Do you remember all that happening?
I do.
So, I don't know the fact that you are able to do what you just did is one of the flaws of both these emails, the town and the CRA. In most companies, the emails are handled by the corporation. Something that I found out when we knew we needed to have access to those documents that are still out there, because you still have CRA business, then that's when those emails were created. But and then it dawned on me, I don't need those emails because I have my town of Edenville address. So you probably won't see that I was reading those emails. Do you see that?
No, go ahead.
Right.
I'll come back.
So I mean, you shouldn't see that because I can't even tell you what the code is for those. But in any case, that's why those, and it was just to be able to access because we had the AA grant, the arts and grant, and we had the DEO. So anything that's still out there that needs to be sent, that's why the email was set up. But I use my town of Edenville
So
address.
who changed it? Who was the individual that changed those passwords and deleted those people off the server and added you in? Who was that individual?
That had to have been Mr. Johnson. Because, and let me back up again, because it wasn't until then that I realized how the whole thing worked. Because the same problem is here. So when you see that I took the sign-in and I gave it to Mr. Singh, that's when it hit. When those emails, you have to pay for your email account. When a request was made and it was as though the emails didn't exist, that's because the account had not been paid because the card that was being used, the CRA card, I believe, stopped. So that payment was not made. However that's done, the payment wasn't made. That's what it was. So when the payment wasn't made, it seemed as though the emails just disappeared. It wasn't until then that it clicked. The only person that had access to the administrative rights was the person that established the email. That was Mr. Johnson. Who should have established it initially? Should have been Mr. Chula. But I didn't know how that was working. I'm just being honest. So when I figured that out, Mr. Johnson gave me the administrative sign-on. That's when you saw all those dates, and I passed it over to Mr. Singh.
So,
Well, because to me that was that's the go-to. Because I did not want the administrative
Was she here?
rights.
Was Mr. Cook? Was Miss Born on it? She went her year? She was here before
I
he
started
was.
Halloween.
But she was here before Mr. Singh, right?
And you might be right.
You should have given it to the executive director now, the CEO.
And I mean, that's fine too, that works as well, but I think that they eventually, did it eventually get to you though?
Yes.
Yeah, so, it's the same.
So, and that's it. And I'll tell you the IP address that was used. It's 24.73.235.2. I can tell you all that. And my issue is, we have an individual that's been terminated by this establishment, still having access to all of our critical things. And that's when, Chair, if you recall, I brought up, how do we apply for a grant when this individual was terminated?
Wait, which grant were you talking about? The grants that you were speaking of were applied for like 3 days after that, are you talking about the historical grant?
And it was done from Mrs. Johnson, because I have the information. Ms.
That-
Williams then gave me access to that.
Okay, go back to those minutes of when you were saying that he should have been terminated. And I said, when we left that meeting, I was not under the impression that he was terminated. So he was not terminated until right after those grants were written. Go back, just check the dates. I'm not, there's nothing for me to say that's not the truth.
Right, and I will tell you.
So that's when those grants were written, to
I will
answer
tell
your
you that
question.
it was after the termination letter that you put out his termination letter. The grant was applied for after that fact. I'm saying all to say is.
Wait, no. Don't say something. Don't say something
Well,
that's not.
just
So I will check the
check your
dates,
records.
because I can almost tell you what day of the week it was, so I'd rather check the dates before. Because he wrote it, I received a notice, and we had such a short window to get the grant written. I didn't want the money lost or the opportunity lost. We had to have projects. So I picked up the phone and called him, so I know we were in. It all happened before that, because it was all done, and he knew he was going to get fired, which is why I want to put that forward right now. Because many of us, if we knew we were going to get fired, we would have done another doggone thing. But he knew that the board was going to be trying to fire him and terminate him, and he still did that for me. So that's how I know it was done all before that termination letter. But I'll check the dates. I'm pretty positive on it.
So, I have grave concerns with our IT being the way it is, and someone still having access, because that means individuals can still be applying for stuff up under the name of this municipality, this historic town.
How? I mean, I hear your concerns, but how can they apply if
Because you have
everything has to
access-
be approved?
Because you have access to the email. And when someone sees something come from that email address at townemail.org, they think it's official in the official capacity. If I get something right now that comes from Attorney Jackson to say DOJ, if I get something from an email that says snoopy@doj.gov, guess what? I'm saying that's official, because everybody can get that nomenclature of that email address. They had to go through a security screening and all that in order to be able to do that. That's why I have concerns. That's why I have concerns with logos and just access being done. So I think we really have to look at it. And when I looked at it, I also seen that Ms. Bradshaw email is still active. So as Attorney Jackson said, we do need to put protocols in place. But I will also state that if things have been done up under these email address and stuff has been procured up under the false pretense that someone is still an active employee of this municipality, we have some grave issues. We have some serious issues.
You don't want to inactivate, change the code maybe, but you don't want to inactivate it. I could be wrong since it's not my forte, because you want to have access to it. That was why I that's why I removed myself, because you want access to those emails.
So I'm very familiar with it, and that's why I was able to understand and be able to trace it. when an email like that, you inactivate that email address. You can go through and change the password on it. You can do so many things, but you don't necessarily go through and change the name of it because we still gotta keep the pretense of who that email came from. So now you're going through changing it to Angie Garden instead of email CRA or email support.
I didn't change anything, and I did not know it was changed from something else. I thought it was just created so that as a vehicle for me to capture any of the
Right. So,
documents. that
so
I had.
I'm letting you know right now, Chair. Your name was put on that.
Yes.
So now it looks like you've been the owner of it the whole time. So unless somebody really goes through and go through it, they'll be able to do an audit and say, okay, on November 4th it was changed. So anything prior to that, that wasn't Angie Gardner. But that right there in itself, like you said, you didn't know, is grave issues.
I agree.
And that's why, who gave authority to do it?
I mean, and honestly, it was just a matter of making sure that we didn't lose anything. So if it could have been done better, but the problem is that we need a complete policy in how we deal with our emails on both sides. Because even on the town side, there was an email request, and the council members were asked to send their emails to this person. I'm not even going to say the name. Send their emails to this person. But when I asked, why are we sending you the emails? Why don't we just provide the emails who requested? And that person said, well, it's so many, it's going to take so long. It's just easier if y'all send them to me. However, knowing now what I know, that we need to secure the emails on this side as well. So the problem is not a CRA problem or a town problem. We need to just have a better process of how we secure that electronic public records.
And you're correct. Yeah, it is. It's a retention. And as you say, even on the other side, we'll keep it that way. On the other side, I asked for access to a former council person email address, and it's been deleted. And Mr. Shepherd weighed in on it with Ms. King, and I think Mr. Singh is on that, maybe. I'm not for sure. But what happened was that access is gone. It can come back. So when people think that just because you think you delete something, it's not gone. It can be retrieved. So, and that's what has happened is people have done stuff with emails that's not ethical and all that. So
It's a matter to get it right, not to do anything behind it. I mean, it just, how it sounds is not how it was at all. It's just to make sure that we didn't lose anything. Simple as that.
But things are being lost. Because see,
on both sides. Do you remember? Do you remember me
on both sides.
saying in the very beginning that I was missing building documents? But you didn't rally like this. When I said I did not have certain documents, I was missing documents. I said it in a town hall meeting, but I didn't hear you. But it is a big issue.
Chair,
it's a big issue.
Yes, you did. I did because I'm a proponent of. I ask for documents. That's one thing. I take my time to go through and read and research things. I do that. That's what I do. And there is something that's very disheartening about this. We can't just brush this and say, oh, it ain't that, because with me doing my research, just this quick research on this, emails actually weren't going out. So if I was asking to see the executive director's email, the emails that he was perpetrating and putting out weren't necessarily coming from his email address. He was using the support. So if I come ask for, and see where it can look funny? If I'm coming asking to see your email address and you're doing stuff in another email address, I would never know.
But you said earlier you could tell if you said it should be unread. Are mine read?
No, I just did an audit, so I can't go in and see all that.
But earlier you said someone.
And his was all.
Oh, okay. And what I'm saying is it's
right.
It all show unread.
But follow what I'm saying, Chair.
I hear you.
I'm saying that individual should have been using his email address. Actually was using the support email address to do transactions. So if someone come and ask for public records from his email address, yeah, this is all I got in my email address, but if you're using the support, you're hiding stuff. That's an issue. That's unethical.
I mean, I'm hearing you, but I don't think that's, and moving forward, yes, we want to protect from that, but it hasn't been an issue. I don't know, when you came, I don't know what you thought you would understand, but hopefully you're clear that everything that was done so that we do get it right.
No, it wasn't done right. But
I said what was done. I can only speak for Angie Gardner.
Right, and that's
That's
why,
what I'm
and Chair, that's why I gave you respect to ask you, did you know? And you said you didn't know, and you don't know why it was done. You said that. So, okay, I understand what you're saying.
We're ready to move on.
I have nothing else on that one.
Okay. Inventory list.
Do we have an inventory list of the items in the CRA? I asked Ms. Bonds, and she said she didn't have it.
All right, so here's the understanding. When you do the audit, and Mr. Singh, I know I'm going to ask you to come up later, but when I asked about the inventory list, because I know that when they do the audit, that they have to have certain, it takes into account certain inventory.
For depreciation
That
and all the
inventory
time.
list should be with Ms. Elena Chua. But in regards to old desks, old chairs, whatever, that kind of stuff in the building that's already probably depreciated down to minimum, then no, it's just a matter of putting it on a piece of paper, I guess, and storing it.
And I'll tell you, Chair, the reason I asked that question is because I want to ensure that when I was on that computer trying to obtain information, things showing that file not found and all that, which tells me someone took the file off. Do we actually have all our computers and stuff over there? Do we know that?
Is there about 4 computers over there?
There are, 1, 2, 3, there are 4 desktops.
In the laptop?
There's an HP laptop, and there are 1, 2, 3 iPads. And I'm sorry, there's 1 Surface also.
So what's missing?
I mean, it wasn't that many.
But do we know?
You know that? It's inventory right there.
All right, unless there's anything else, there are no board decisions. Mr. Singh, it says staff report, and I know you're not staff report, we do have an interlocal agreement, and I would like you to weigh in and give us any thoughts or anything that you'd like to share.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, what I would like to leave you all with is, with respect to the CRA, particularly the CRA budget, is to understand essentially what you're getting for what you're spending. And in my review of the CRA budget, I could not tell what you're getting, other than administration of something without any type of return on investment. So it's something that's important because it was mentioned earlier today that you're spending a lot of money. Councilwoman Randolph mentioned certain line items and certain appropriations, such as salaries and benefits, consultant cost. That is something that needs review. You still have time left in this year to look at if you want to modify and establish a program for the rest of the year. 3.5 months have already gone by since the fiscal year began. So I think it would be important to establish what is the plan that you would want to achieve at the end of this fiscal year, which is September 30th. So I would leave you with that, Mayor and Board Chair.
Thank you. Director Bonds. I mean, not Director, I'm sorry.
I don't have a question.
Yeah, Executive Director.
No report.
No report. Director Daniels.
No report.
Director Randolph.
No report.
Director Henderson.
No report.
Director Washington. Everybody have a great weekend. Yes, weekend, rest of the week and a great weekend. Have a great night, God bless you. I move that, with nothing else being said, I move for adjournment. Is we move second? Is we move in second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. And then, it's 7:16.